Okay, so my name is Lynn Ruane. I'm a senator here in Ireland. Myself and John are recording for the Listowel Writers Weekend, which is obviously not happening in the way that it usually does. So you'll have to bear with me and John. We're trying something new here in how we interview. We've never met, so we're getting to know each other in literally by chatting on Zoom this morning. And the theme, I suppose, of the conversation this morning is healing, which can obviously mean a lot of things to a lot of people. And for me, working in addiction for so long, and I developed addiction programs for 20 years, healing and recovery itself looked very, very different for people at different stages of their lives and their recovery. And then also, I suppose, my own healing in my life. I was very, very young when my life began to kind of unfold in a way that maybe no 10 or 11-year-old's life really should. I was surrounded by a lot of hardship and deprivation and poverty, and that obviously brings a huge amount of trauma and into a child's life when their community is so traumatized. So for me, my healing journey from my experiences as a kid are still ongoing. I'm 35, I'm still healing. Something new seems to emerge in me every month or every few months that I didn't realize was something that I was carrying since I was younger or since my 20s. I used drugs from a very young age, and I suppose I used drugs in a way that was self-medicating, which is a big difference, I suppose, between drug use and drug abuse. And in communities like mine, we were very, very we were very, very impacted by drug abuse because of the lack of in our community, and the lack of opportunity, and the lack of equality, and the lack of of ability to flourish. So I feel that the last 20 years or so of my life haven't been necessarily about flourishing, but about healing, so that I can then begin to flourish. At the age of 15, I had my daughter Jordan, who it's her birthday today. She's 20 today. And I was only 15 when I had her. And even though obviously teenage pregnancy is a difficult thing, and I had to rear my daughter through, I suppose, my own mental health issues, it was also a huge healing thing as well for me, because it allowed me to re-engage with education. And education was a huge aspect of my healing. And in the last few months, I've been writing poetry, and I've written all my life. I've kept diaries my entire life, and everything that I felt that I couldn't say out loud or I couldn't say to somebody else, I wrote on a page. But I found with poetry, I was able to say a lot more in this really discreet way that only I could understand what was on the page. So they were like, it's like my poems were like secret code that nobody else could understand, apart from myself. But to think about healing for me, it's something that's, I suppose, lifelong and different, and one version of healing or therapy doesn't suit everyone. Everybody has their own way to heal, and they should be allowed to be able to explore all those different ways to heal. And I suppose writing for me, and writing my book, given it's the Listowel Writers Weekend, after I wrote my book, even though people would say, oh, that must have been a very healing process, if anything, it spiraled me and triggered me into a huge amount of trauma that I thought that I had already healed from. But with a more mature mind, I realized that there was part of the things that I'd experienced when I was younger that actually I hadn't fully healed from at all. So the book, even though it played a role in unearthing some of that trauma, it definitely didn't initially feel like it was a healing process, but it definitely triggered a new journey and a new path for me to be able to explore the things that I needed to heal, and the anger that I felt that was still at the core of who I was. But yeah, like that's pretty much my journey with healing is ongoing. I'm sure, John, you'll agree that it's not something that's static or just happens, or
No, definitely not. And it's funny you say that about the book. It was never really a cathartic thing for you, because for me it wasn't. I wrote a book a few years ago about my story, my journey, and um, I haven't looked at it since. And even writing it was a chore, to be honest. It was a hard slog, and it brought up a lot of things that I had to kind of objectify in my head. And my story is a little bit different to yours, because I didn't get into drugs or anything like that as early as you did. I had a very good young life in a sort of warm, loving home. I was the school football captain. I was the GAA captain. I was relatively good in school and had lots of opportunities. And when I was in secondary school towards the end, I was on the Dublin minor panel. I was meant to go to over to England to soccer trials and all this kind of stuff was meant to happen. And I got kicked off the Dublin panel. I got dropped in the squad, and it didn't happen. The trials in England never happened to be a professional footballer. They made a balls up about the age. Anyway, that story could go on for about 20 minutes in itself. And then around the same time, I started arguing with my dad about different things, and the church was one of them. And I'd have been an altar boy when I was a kid, and unbeknownst to him, the parish priest was a paedophile. He'd been abusing me and other kids, and this all sort of cropped up and came out at the same time. We were arguing about the priest, and this all happened at the same time. And I didn't get into university. I only put one college course down on my CAO, CAS form thing, and eventually what meant was I was 18. I had no job, no college, no girlfriend at the time, nothing. And all this stuff about being abused by a priest was ranking through my head, and I started getting into. I tried a bit of drugs when I was younger, and it didn't bother with it. But then I just got heavy into it all, and then it took me probably 15 years of going off the rails to eventually come to my senses, and I had to really, in terms of healing, it took me. So much graft, and throughout it, the only thing that I had friends and support and that kind of stuff to a degree, but the writing was always there. It was something that I was able to articulate my madness in my mind, because when you go through hardship like you, or abuse like me, and you try and process it without I didn't get any professional help. I still haven't, and I probably still am like yourself. I'm in my 40s now, and I'm still figuring out how to be the best future. I'm creating my own future, and I'm in a much better place. But it's something that never really. Well, it does leave you if you can move on. But to be honest, words and people who are watching this, if you're in school and you're going through heavy stuff, expressing yourself, getting words out is an amazing way. To try and release the valve of all that stuff, and poetry for me was amazing, because like you were saying, Lynn, it's a kind of not a secretive way, but it's a nice way to get stuff out of your mind,
I think, yeah, like it's interesting what you say. So when we both speak about the types of drug use we involved ourselves in, it was therapy in itself, because we didn't have access to therapy in any other way. So you used drugs to self-medicate from an abuse that you experienced, and I used drugs to self-medicate from the amount of my friends that were dying, and the huge amount of criminality and drug use in my community. And I think what's really important in that message is that so many people blame the individual for their for addiction. It was your choice. You wanted to take drugs, you want to be on drugs, you don't want help, all the usual kind of stigmas. when actually, when you get down to the crux of it and you really get to know people, you realize that most people are self-medicating because of society's failings of those people. And you were failed, I was failed. And the majority of people that you see that are walking around so numbed out from the world are numbing out from the world because of a failure in society and an ill in society, not because addiction was something that was attractive to them, but actually it was a way for them to escape a reality that was painful and hurtful. Would you agree with that? Or
Yeah, 100%. You know, like treating the symptoms of something like, you know, drug abuse or even alcohol abuse or any other kind of addiction, you know, if you have to get to the root of it, you know. And for individuals like myself, and my friends were all sort of taking different things at the time as well, but I would always go further, and I'd always get so I just go, you know, within 6 months of leaving school, I was smoking heroin, and you know, I was, as any person out there will probably testify, who's been in that sort of real heavy state. You're not doing it because you're trying to get a thrill, you know. You're not doing it because you want to. Well, you are, but you're trying to get away from the reality that the brain set that you're in is just too hard to deal with. So, like, but I think now where I'm at, what I always try and do is focus on the future. You know, always, and I would say that to anyone who might be struggling through something, is obviously get help. You know, there's so many great people you can speak to now, so many people you can, whether it's any of the professional groups you can get in touch with, but believe in yourself at some level. Remember who you are, you know, have a faith in yourself, trust in yourself, and create a vision of yourself. Because I don't know if you ever did it, but when I was younger, no matter what I went through, I always had a vision that I would be a successful writer. That was always something I held true when I was young as well. And it was something that came out in the book. So I won an award for, you know, the sports book of the year for my book. But it was because I'd gone through this incredible story of, you know, hell and back and drugs and abuse that made it a texture. So if people are suffering now, you know, and you're able to take snippets of it, remember that you will ultimately, if it is in a creative way, you can turn that into something absolutely spectacular. And you can really adapt your circumstances to be whatever you want them to be, you know. So that's what I would say if anyone's, you know, you can have a future that will represent what you have in your imagination for yourself. You can really go wherever you want, no matter how hard things are, you know.
yeah, I was the same. I had this dream of being an author. I was a massive Enid Blyton fan when I was younger, and I didn't know she had died, and I wrote her a letter.
Oh, no.
Yeah, not realizing she was well dead. And I remember my mom
Who
having,
did you just sent it off?
yeah, I ended up it was a fan club I joined, so they used to send me news.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought
Oh,
I was writing directly to Enid Blyton.
yeah.
But there was times like when I was younger and I had my typewriter and I used to sellotape books together, and I wanted to be an author and I wanted to be a writer, and there was stages in my life then in my teenage years when things were really, really hard for me. When people would say to me, like, you know, oh, you're wasting your life, and you know, you're going to amount to nothing. And I remember one woman saying to me, you've wasted your life. And I was 15 at the time. I was pregnant. I was
Wow.
trying to get my junior cert, and I just thought this woman was talking about me in past tense, and I was 15. And I kind of
Wow.
was like, how could somebody talk about a child in past tense at the age of 15? What the hell does that mean for the rest of my life? And I think what you're saying is right about looking forward to being in the present, and then also looking forward to the future in terms of what you can create, and not allowing, no matter how hard your life is in any given moment, to never let anybody write you off, you know,
Yeah.
not let people talk about you in past tense, because as a young person, the potential that you have is infinite, you know, and it's about trying to find those creative, resourceful, resilient ways to be able to pursue all the greatness that you are. And I think but that's an awful lot of responsibility to put on a young person. So we also have to then be able to say to society, to teachers, to the education system, that you can't keep telling children to achieve, to do better, to be resilient, if you're also not going to remove all the obstacles in the way for those young people to take those aspirations and then be able to flourish, you know. So it's like the responsibility for young people to be able to flourish goes right to the top, you know, right through society, to be able to create a society where every child can have their basic needs met, because I think it's very hard for us to be able to achieve if our very basic needs aren't met. And I think that's on us as a society to ensure that children have their basic needs met so that they can be creative.
It's so important. You know, like we live in, you know, those two modes. It's either fight, flight, or freeze. When you're in that mode of survival, you know, you can't create, you can't do amazing things then if you're worried about bread on the table or someone robbing your gaff or whatever, you know, when you're having a kid at 15 or whatever it is, or you're being abused or whatever it is, you're in no place to be able to excel as a human being, you know, and that's, you've got to have that protection and ability to have opportunities in a safe environment. It's imperative, you know.
Totally.
It has to happen.
Is there anything, I think if is there anything on a daily basis that you do in your life that is part of your healing process? I know you say you don't engage in professional help, but professional help is not, you know, it's like I said, it's not, it's people find their own ways to be able to heal and be able to get to know themselves and who they are and their own identities and all of that. Is there, if we were to leave
obviously there's simple things like exercise and trying to keep that process is always very important, but I started meditating again lately, and I'm finding it amazing, you know, and I'm doing it. I used to do it years ago when I started to try and get off things, to try and tap into a different way of thinking about things, and I started doing it again lately because I've started to feel like I really need it. And it's amazing because I'm able to, in my head, I'm just thinking about what I want to be, and I want to write another book now. I'm in the process of it, and I want that to be an amazing piece of creative fiction. And so I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking how good it's going to be. And I use those sort of meditative moments to try and help me stay balanced. Because a lot of it for me is when I get unbalanced, when my mindset gets unbalanced, and that's what happened years ago when I wasn't able to process stuff. I get unbalanced and I drink to get balanced again, or I smoke and I get into drugs to get balanced. So if I can keep that balance, I'm good and I can create then. So that's, you know, and it doesn't have to be too woo-woo, you know. Meditation can be, I used to cringe when people told me they meditated, you know, like, oh no, here we go. But when you clear your head, I find now I feel great, you know, if I can think of nothing and then start thinking about what I want. And I'd say that to anyone who gets to watch this, if you can spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is, clearing your head and visualizing what you want, visualizing your happy place. Like think, like, and I did it as a young kid. I always had that vision for being a successful writer and a successful footballer. And I got back in the Dublin squad in mid-20s for a while, and then I went off the rail. It didn't work out. But I always maintained those ideas in my head. And so I'd say that's what I have been doing lately to keep myself on an even keel. What about yourself? Do you do anything to heal or keep yourself?
I do. I exercise a lot, and I lift weights, and I find that really helps me. But I also write. Most days I write about between 750 words to 1,000 words, and it's just anything. It's just anything that's in my head. You know, sometimes that voice will come in. Oh, you know, oh, you're a bad mother, you're a bad person, or you know, you shouldn't have said that thing, that that just that narrator that sometimes seeps into your brain and just keeps giving you a negative frame of who you are. And I find that if I sit down and I write, and it doesn't have to be any particular format, and I'm not writing for anything or for it to be shared anywhere. It's just
Yeah,
what is that narration in my head, and I sit down and I write it. And actually some of my best poetry has accidentally come from me actually just writing first thing in the morning, and then later on going and taking some of the lines that came out of my head first thing in the morning and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
them into a format. But yeah, so I write and I exercise, but I also try and people, it's hard, I know it's hard to say, you know, talk, because not everybody finds it easy to talk. But I think one of the most important things for me is that if I can get to a place where I can let things out of my head, it means that I have somebody else to challenge that thought. If I keep it in my head, the only person challenging that thought is myself. So really I'm only talking to myself, and the loop is going around and around and around. So
Yeah,
sometimes,
yeah,
you know, if I can manage to speak out about something that's really coming up for me, or if I'm triggered by something, or, you know, so I've experienced sexual abuse myself. So sometimes if there's a lot of that online in a moment, I might be getting very triggered by that and stuff. So, you know, sometimes I just have to warn the people around me that, you know, I'm not in a good space. So, you know, just to bear with me, you know. So
yeah,
I think honesty. So my every day, I try be honest, I try exercise, and I try write, and they're the three things I try to do to keep myself feeling well and okay.
very similar. Yeah, very similar. You know, exercise. I'm writing most days. You know, and yeah, I suppose the other one, a small little one I do is I basically almost blank social media and everything at the moment, because when at the moment it's madness in there, to be honest, you know, and I, I don't have the brain space
No.
to deal with all the stuff in there, and even put myself out there. I can't. I just focus on me and do what I'm doing at the moment, and then maybe come back to it when I feel a lot more clear about. And I say that to other people, you know, social media is mayhem, you know, in certain respects, and you just got to be, if you're feeling fragile or anything like that, just take a week or two off it, you know.
Step back from
Because
it.
I've taken, I was originally taking a few weeks off, and then it's just been months now. I don't really do anything with it, and I feel grand, you know. It feels, have a little look at it, and then just move on, you know.
Yeah, totally. Well, John,
Very freeing for the brain.
I think I think we'll leave it there. That was I could really, I could, I'm sure we could chat all day, and but
Yeah,
I think they you know, we have to kind of keep it short and simple for the writers weekend. And maybe next year when the coronavirus is not dictating our day, maybe they might travel you over for New Zealand for us to have a longer chat.
yeah, be good. Yeah, I look
Yeah,
forward to it.
thank you, John.
Cool. Okay, thank you, Lynn. Lovely. Nice
Lovely to
one.
meet you. Bye.
See you later.